My name is Mara. I am an intuitive, an empath, and a healer. I'm not sure where Spirit is going to take this channel, but it's my intention, at least, to create a container that is safe for people of like mind to gather and connect and grow together. Most of my life, I have not fit in. I've been very different from the people around me, and I have been searching for a place of belonging as far back as I can remember. So I'm going to create it. I'm going to create it here for my soul family. So I hope that you feel welcome and safe and warm and cozy. And to help you feel warm and safe and cozy, it might be helpful for you to know a bit about me and my journey and how I got here and who I am and what I stand for. So I'll do my best to share that, to share the spark notes of my life's journey thus far. And I'll try not to go on too many tangents. So I was born in a very, very small rural town in Florida. I was born into a family of domestic violence. My father and my grandfather were both narcissists, textbook narcissists, very controlling, very abusive. And so I had to grow up very fast as a child. And I had to learn how to read a room. I had to be able to walk into a room and know by the energetics of that space if it was safe to be there. I had to be able to look at my father or my grandfather and be able to know when they were about to go off, or if it was safe to be around them. It was a constant walking on eggshells. So my empathy, and most people who are empaths, developed as a survival tactic. It was a way to keep me safe. It was also a way to keep my mother safe, because I felt as a very young age that I had to be her protector. And when I was, I always had a very strong connection to Source. I spent the majority of my childhood alone. We lived in the woods, and I spent most of my time outside talking to the fairies and the creepy crawlies and the birds and animals, and I lived in a fairy tale in my head because my reality was something that I wanted to escape. So I work in the shamanic realms a lot now, but looking back, I've always been in the shamanic realms, even since I was a child. It's always been my safe space. Music also has always been a safe space for me, and art. Music specifically, though, really speaks to my inner child, and we have fun with that. But anyway, that was a tangent. When I was 6 years old, I have a very vivid memory of sitting alone in my room. The window was open and there was a cool breeze coming in and there was music playing, and I was sitting on the floor and I was talking to Spirit, and I asked my guides, why am I here? I'm so alone. And even when I'm not alone, nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. I'm so different. I lived in this really rural town with lots of racism and lots of closed-mindedness, lots of poverty. Lots of drug use, just like very, very low vibration. And I never felt like I belonged. I could never find my people. And Spirit replied to me that I was there to break the chain. And I knew as a 6-year-old girl what that meant. I was born into this family to break the cycle of abuse. I was born into this line of women to change the trajectory of our lineage. It was going to end with me. I'm now learning that this breaking of the chain goes far beyond my maternal lineage. Spirit reveals the path step by step so that you don't get overwhelmed. If I had known that as a young child, I would have been really overwhelmed. But so I carried that with me all of my life. And when I was 8 years old, my parents finally divorced after I intervened into a pretty horrific domestic violence situation. I think my mother had to see me to realize how bad it was for her to leave. But she did. And I'm so grateful that she did. That she modeled that for me. But, school was hard. I didn't really fit in with anyone, and Spirit was good to me. He, there were angels on my path along the way. My grandmother was one of my greatest angels, and now is my literal angel. And there was a librarian in an elementary school. Shout out to Chalula, if you are still with us. You changed my life forever. She really saw me, and she would call me out of class to come hang out with her in the library. She would tell my teachers that she needed help, but really we just hung out. And then in high school, my art teacher, Daisy Faye Parker, she saved me. High school was particularly hard. I mean, it's hard for lots of us. We're all kind of trying to find our way. But because of my upbringing, I spent most of my teenage years trying to find acceptance and love and belonging in the opposite sex, and I'm sure you can guess how that went. I incurred a lot of trauma there. But yeah, that was childhood and adolescence. And you know, in school, I was so different. Even my name was different, you know. There were all of these common names, and then here's Mara, and she's different. She acts different. Her energy's different, and her name's different, and I just wanted to be like everybody else. I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to belong somewhere. So I started dimming my light, and I started shutting down my gifts, and I put myself to sleep. And I tried my best to be a little sheeple. And it was working okay until I turned like 22. And I started dating a guy who introduced me to psychedelics. And I met with my inner child again. And it was so beautiful. And I've been on a journey of coming back to her ever since. After that experience, I applied for an art therapy program, a graduate program at Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. And I knew that was where I was supposed to be. And I got it. And I remember flying here for my interview. And when I saw the mountains for the first time, I finally felt like I was home. I had been searching for home all of my life. And I finally felt it in the mountains. I called to them and they called back. And I connected with the land. And then I met my next angel teacher, Sue Wallingford. I knew she was special because she had my grandmother's piercing blue eyes. And she had the same name. She was also an actual angel of mine now. But when I got to Boulder, everything started to make sense. I finally saw myself reflected in other people. People actually cared. People actually cared. And they were compassionate and empathic. And they had emotional intelligence. And I felt seen for the first time in my life. Like truly seen. And understood. And I felt like I could slowly start showing myself. And I started to heal and grow and remember who I am. And I found plant medicine. And it completely changed my life. And on my third year of grad school, I was introduced to the Native American church. And I met my Lakota family in Crestone. And attended my first peyote ceremony. And it was there that I connected with my ancestors. And it was there that they revealed to me parts of my path. It was there that my inner dragon started to awaken. Shortly after that experience, I started my internship at a safe house for women escaping sex trafficking. I began to see in real time how we can be profoundly hurt in relationship to other. But so too can we be profoundly healed by relationship with other. The poison becomes the medicine. And after I graduated, my first job was working at a safe house for women escaping domestic violence. And there, my inner child really healed. And it's hard to say, like, who healed who, because those women healed me just as much, if not more, than I helped them heal. And isn't that what true healing's all about? Because our liberation is bound. Yeah. So I worked there for, I don't know, half a year. And then Spirit told me to leave. And I didn't understand. I didn't have a job to go to. But Spirit told me to start my private practice, and so that's what I did. And I started taking clients. I started doing a few underground medicine sessions with people. And I made it work. And I did that until I left the man that I was dating. And I asked Spirit to please, guide me in the next direction that I was to take. I needed to build up enough income that I could leave the house with the man that I was living with, and so Spirit sent me to work with the Green Dragon, working with plants that tend to grow here in Colorado, if you know what I mean. And in the meantime, as I was doing that, and building up the courage to leave, I sat in my first ayahuasca ceremony with grandmother, and she is the one that told me to leave, and that there was someone else that I was supposed to meet. And so I listened to her, because grandmother is very stern. So I don't want to cross her, and I will listen to what she says. So I left, and I I started doing some trimming to make work and build some income. And I met someone. I didn't know it at the time, but he would be my karmic completion. He would be the person that catapulted me into who I am today. He would be the person that reminded me who I am and pushed me to stand in my power. When I met him, he pulled me aside and created a nice little altar for us, very charming. And we were inseparable from that moment. He said all the right things. He appeared to be perfect. And when I slept next to him for the first time, I woke up with the name Kai in my head. And I told him that I knew we were to have a son together. And 2 years later, and a whole whirlwind of karmic knots, we did. After meeting him, I was homeless 2 separate occasions. Was part of the karmic knot that I was in with him. And I lost nearly all of my possessions. Even very special childhood things that I wanted to save for my children, I lost them. But I wanted to save him. I wanted to show him what true love is. I wanted him to know what ride or die really feels like. I wanted him to know that no matter what, I wasn't going to drop him. That I really loved him and I really cared about him. And I didn't realize that I was living out the karmic cycles of my maternal lineage. That self-sacrifice equates love. I'm going to give up my own dreams, my own aspirations, my own wants, needs, and desires so that you have what you want and you have what you need and you're lifted up. This is how I show you that I love you. And he was a wonderful partner. Like throughout all of that, he still was a wonderful partner until he became a father. I gave birth to my son, Kai, at the apex of the pandemic, March 2020. It was a home birth, and while motherhood and postpartum are isolating already. Because of the pandemic, I was completely isolated. No one could visit. No one could fly to come and see me. No one was afraid to come in the house, and I was afraid to let anyone in the house because I had a brand new baby and I was scared. It was rough. It was really, really rough. And then he was fired. And during my lonely postpartum, I had to pack up our belongings and sell what we could sell. And again, we were homeless. But this time, with my 3-month-old, we had to come back to Florida, where all of my trauma was, where all of my heartache and my loneliness and my depression resided. What was supposed to be 1 month turned into 6 months living with his parents, which was extremely difficult for many different reasons. And it took another 2 years before I could come back to my beloved Colorado. During that time in Florida, I became a postpartum doula, Ayurvedic postpartum doula, because I never wanted any other mother to go through the postpartum that I did. So when we came back to Colorado, I wanted to start up my postpartum work. But my partner wanted me to get a part-time job so that everything was even Stevens. I would not do that. I could not do that. And that became the contingency of our relationship. He did not want me to rise. He did not want me to flourish. And he tried to prevent me, subconsciously or consciously. He tried to prevent me from living out my life's purpose. And I could not do it. I did not know this at the time, but I was in a relationship with a covert narcissist. And I don't know if you know much about covert narcissism, but it's sneaky. It's very sneaky. It's like a slow drip. And one day, I woke up and I didn't recognize myself. I completely lost myself. But that was one thing I wouldn't allow him to take away. You cannot take away my life's purpose. And the harder I fought back, the louder he got. The more irate he got. The more he could not control the inner demons inside of him. And it wasn't until he followed me into the bedroom, yelling and screaming at me. And I heard my son in the other room yelling and screaming and mirroring what he was hearing. It wasn't until that happened that I realized it was truly a problem. Just like my mother had to witness me intervening, I had to hear my son to realize that I was perpetuating the cycle. And I began to understand that I was going to need to leave. But when his tactics stopped working, he then started to threaten to leave me. Being a single mother was never something that I signed up for. I did not want my child to come from a broken home. I came from that, and I didn't want that for my children. But I also knew that I didn't want to perpetuate this cycle. But because his hooks were so deep in me, I talked him off of a ledge and conceived our second child together. And many people would say that that is absolutely ludicrous, and why didn't you just leave? Looking back, I needed that child. I needed that child. So fast forward, I'm 5 months pregnant, and he is yelling at me at the top of his lungs yet again because I won't get a part-time job. I'm 5 months pregnant. And he gets so irate that he picks up his gaming headphones and he throws them on the hardwood floor, and they shatter into a million pieces. Usually, I go into freeze or fawn mode. But when that happened on that day, I was 8 years old again, hearing my parents argue in the other room. And I flew up off of that couch. And I told him that I was walking out of the door, that I needed to regulate myself, that it wasn't safe to be in that room with him for me and my unborn baby. And he told me that if I walked out of that door, that he was going to leave. And I felt my baby kick. And I went out of that fucking door. I was 7 months pregnant by the time I could actually leave. That entire pregnancy, I was alone. I did everything alone. I went to all of my appointments alone. I went to the ultrasounds alone. And I gave birth to him on my own, surrounded by very powerful women. But the postpartum was excruciating. That was the lowest I've ever been. Below rock bottom. I had no time to heal from the trauma that I had just experienced. I had no time for my body to rest. And I was alone with a crying baby with wild colic and reflux, and he had trouble nursing. And I also had a 3-year-old at the time. It was a lot. And I honestly do not know how I got through it. But somehow I did. Somehow I did. And not only did I give birth to my son, Caden, who is my soulmate. Not only did I give birth to him, but I also gave birth to myself. Because in that postpartum cocoon, I completely rebirthed myself. The old me died, and a new me was born. And I have so much gratitude and compassion for that woman that I was. She got me as far as she could. And she did such a good job. It's been a hard road. It's been a really hard road. But I'm so grateful to be here today. I'm so grateful for my boys. I'm so grateful that I get to raise a new generation of men that honor and respect women. Men who aren't afraid to cry and express gratitude and love and appreciation. Men that revere Mother Earth and are good to her and kind to her and give back to her and protect her. I'm so honored that I have the privilege to do that. And all of the people that hurt me throughout my life, I'm still grateful. Because I wouldn't be who I am today without them. I wouldn't have honed my gifts the way that I have without them. I wouldn't be this version of myself. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for hearing me and seeing me. I'm really looking forward to growing with you. There are good things on the horizon. The dark days are over. And I'm so excited to walk towards the light with you. To be the light with you. I hope you have a beautiful day.